I'm literally just expressing my opinion as I'm thinking it, like, hey, I need you to do this. I'm sorry if this feels short. It's by no means meant to, belittle you or whatever. I just need this done super quickly and we're under a time crunch. So I think a lot of it more so comes in just taking the internal thoughts that you're having and externalizing them. And like I mentioned with the beginning of my intro there, like coming from more of an introverted perspective, that was very difficult. And it's still a very difficult thing for me because a lot of that happens in my head and I don't ever, or it's more difficult to stop myself and say, hey, you need to externalize it so they know that that's what you're thinking. Because if you don't, they're going to have absolutely no idea that you actually do care, but they're not getting enough of the message to hear it.
Totally. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
That was a great question. All right, onward. So through a lot of this, I was trying to not give away the next slide, but the next slide is based on all about asking good questions, because this is kind of the key component to anything revolving around project scopes, anything, just creative work in general. From what I've noticed and how I've began approaching a lot of this stuff, and even outside of like business as a whole, the more pointed and relevant questions that I can ask, the better everything becomes. Just because you're able to surface things that you might not have gotten from someone up front, and they may have just, like I'm saying, if I'm internalizing all of my thoughts and I'm assuming someone knows a piece of it, that doesn't mean that they're understanding all of it or even know that that's what's going on. So I will treat it like the flip side as well. Like maybe there are things that you're thinking through that you assume that I know. And the only way that I can make sure that I have a map of everything that you're thinking is just by asking as many questions as humanly possible. And it's also interesting because to piggyback off of what Ray asked right there, what I'll usually do is treat it more so like that soft touch of saying, hey, I just want to make sure I'm on the same page because this is going to be a tight timeline, or because I want to make sure that I'm getting everything that you need. So you kind of put it back on yourself and you say, is this what you're saying here? Is, you described this, this, and this, like, is that actually what you're saying, or is it coming from some other place? And you're just kind of like, even with the statements that someone is making that feel very explicit, you still go into them to make sure that that's true, because there could be so many things wrapped up into that you're not getting from them. So to start here, and kind of piggyback off the timeline and budget, usually what I'll try and do is just, let's say they're coming into this project and they're trying to figure out, like, do we have the budget for this? How much are you asking for in terms of your rate as a creative? What I usually try and do here is like use that soft touch kind of people skills and way of communicating to flip it back on them and say, well, I have some other projects going on right now. My budget is honestly dependent on timelines and what you're actually looking to do. Can you get me an understanding